Have you ever touched a woman but never truly reached her? You kissed her lips, you held her hand, and yet something remained distant, unreachable. It wasn't her body you failed to touch, it was her soul. Especially with older women, those who have lived, who have loved, who have lost. The need is not for attention, it's for resonance, it's for reverence, it's for being seen in a world that's forgotten how to truly look. Today I want to share with you 9 places older women secretly covet. These are not just physical spots on the body. They are emotional sanctuaries, psychological doorways, spiritual invitations. And if you learn to touch her in these places, with presence, with patience, with intention, she will remember you, not as a man who wanted her body, but as the man who stirred her soul. This is not a lesson in seduction. This is a lesson in presence. This is the Stoic art of intimacy. Stoicism and intimacy. Stoicism teaches us not to chase after fleeting things. Fame, wealth, pleasure, youth, all of them pass, all of them fade. But what remains? Character, virtue, depth. A Stoic man walks slowly, listens deeply, acts purposefully. He does not need to prove. He does not rush, because in his stillness, he commands presence. When it comes to intimacy, the Stoic does not conquer. He attunes, he listens, he honors. He knows that to touch a woman is not to take from her. It is to meet her exactly where she is, and to offer your attention without the need to possess. Older women crave this, not the fireworks of youth, but the slow burn of trust, the calm flame of mutual recognition. So now let us enter the 9 sacred places. Each one is a lesson. Each one is an opportunity to connect, not consume, to awaken, not overwhelm, to cherish, not chase. Have you ever touched a woman, but never truly reached her? You kissed her lips, you held her hand, and yet something remained distant, unreachable. It wasn't her body you failed to touch, it was her soul. Especially with older women, those who have lived, who have loved, who have lost. The need is not for attention, it's for resonance, it's for reverence, it's for being seen in a world that's forgotten how to truly look. Today, I want to share with you 9 places older women secretly covet. These are not just physical spots on the body, they are emotional sanctuaries, psychological doorways, spiritual invitations. And if you learn to touch her in these places, with presence, with patience, with intention, she will remember you, not as a man who wanted her body, but as the man who stirred her soul. This is not a lesson in seduction. This is a lesson in presence. This is the Stoic art of intimacy. Stoicism and intimacy. Stoicism teaches us not to chase after fleeting things. Fame, wealth, pleasure, youth, all of them pass, all of them fade. But what remains? Character, virtue, depth. A Stoic man walks slowly, listens deeply, acts purposefully. He does not need to prove. He does not rush, because in his stillness, he commands presence. When it comes to intimacy, the Stoic does not conquer. He attunes, he listens, he honors. He knows that to touch a woman is not to take from her. It is to meet her exactly where she is, and to offer your attention without the need to possess. Older women crave this, not the fireworks of youth, but the slow burn of trust, the calm flame of mutual recognition. So now let us enter the 9 sacred places. Each one is a lesson. Each one is an opportunity to connect, not consume, to awaken, not overwhelm, to cherish, not chase. 1. Her eyes, the gateway to her soul. Her eyes are not just orbs of color or points of attraction. They are doorways to memory, to emotion, and to meaning. Especially in an older woman, the eyes speak more than her words ever will. They've seen joy and betrayal, the rising of children and the silence of departure. They've held tears both of celebration and of deep loss. To look into her eyes and truly see her, without distraction, without agenda, is rare, because we live in a world trained to glance, to skim, to swipe, but not to dwell, not to see, man. When you hold her gaze, don't do so with intensity, but with calm clarity. Let her feel that you are not just looking at her, you are looking into her. Let her feel that your presence is not probing, but patient. Your attention is not consuming, but contemplative. You are not there to impress, to convince, or to win. You are simply there, for her example. You're sitting across from her in a dimly lit room. The world has grown quiet. Maybe there's a glass of wine between you, maybe not. But you ask her a simple question. What moment in life changed you forever? She exhales, looks away, then looks back. And as she begins to speak, you don't interrupt. You hold her gaze. You nod gently. You listen not only to her words, but to the tremble in her voice, to the dance of memory behind her eyes. In that moment, you're not just two people on a date. You are a witness. And she, perhaps for the first time in a long time, feels truly seen. Why this matters to a Stoic? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself." That includes your attention. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, the Stoic man reverses that instinct. He practices seeing clearly, gently, intentionally. You can practice this by training your gaze, not in front of a mirror, but in real conversation. When a woman speaks, look not for when to respond, but for what she's showing you without saying. Is there tension in her eyes? Is there longing? Is there sadness beneath the laughter? You don't have to name it. Just notice it and stay present, because her eyes, when you know how to dwell in them, are not a mystery to solve. They're a cathedral to sit in, quietly, and when you give her that space, she'll remember you, not for your charm or cleverness, but for the rare and healing gift of being truly seen. 2. Her hands, the carriers of her past. Her hands are journals written in skin. They've planted gardens and buried dreams. They've held the hands of children, the faces of lovers, the cracked edges of door frames she leaned on when her knees gave out in silence. To touch her hands is to enter the very history of her. A younger man may only notice if her nails are manicured. A Stoic man notices the calluses, the shape of her fingers, the way her veins rise and fall like hills and rivers. Evidence of decades lived with both grace and grit. She may hide them out of modesty or shame. Some women grow quiet about aging. But when you reach out, slowly, intentionally, and hold her hands in yours, you're not just offering physical warmth. You're telling her, you do not need to erase time for me. I welcome every part of your story. This kind of touch is not flirtation, it's reverence. Example, you're sitting beside her on a park bench, the sun is low, a breeze cuts through the silence. She fidgets with her sweater sleeve, hiding her hands. And instead of making a joke or brushing it off, you gently take one of her hands into yours. You don't squeeze, you don't swing it playfully, you just hold it and breathe. She may look at you with surprise. She may look away. But over time, her hand relaxes into yours. And that act, seemingly simple, becomes sacred. There's something deeply calming about a man who does not grab, does not grope, but simply holds, as if he understands the weight she's carried and wishes only to let her rest for a while. Why this matters to a Stoic? Epictetus taught that we must approach each moment, each person, as if it were borrowed, never possessed. When you hold her hand, think of it as a moment on loan from time itself. You are not entitled to her trust. You earn it by showing that you value her without needing to change her. Hold her hand without expectation. Let your presence say, I am not in a hurry to reach the next thing. This, right now, is enough. In a world driven by the speed of conquest, be the rare man who lingers in the sanctuary of stillness. One who understands that sometimes the deepest connection begins not with words or glances, but with the quiet miracle of two hands resting together in peace. 3. The small of her back, the anchor point. There is a spot on her lower back just above the curve of her hips that is often overlooked, physically and symbolically. To many, it's just anatomy. But to a man who understands presence, it is an anchor, a quiet symbol of support. This part of her body carries more than posture. It carries tension. It carries vulnerability. It's where she may have braced herself in grief, bent herself forward in the effort, arched herself in surrender. When you place your hand here, not to guide, not to steer, but simply to steady, you are offering her something most men forget to give: reassurance without control. A woman, especially one who has lived through betrayal or disappointment, does not trust easily. And yet, when your touch arrives at the small of her back with softness, stillness, and strength, it sends a signal. You are not alone. You don't have to hold everything by yourself. It's a subtle touch, one that doesn't need to linger, but done at the right moment, crossing a street, walking through a door, pausing beside her while she's distracted, it creates a resonance she won't forget. Example: you're walking beside her in a busy place. She pauses slightly, unsure of which direction to go. Without a word, you gently place your hand at the small of her back, not to push, but simply to say, "I'm with you." She feels it instantly, a steadying presence, not rushed, not possessive, just quietly there. Her body exhales in that moment, and though she says nothing, something softens inside her. This touch becomes a tether between you, not a leash, a tether, a quiet link of safety. Why this matters to a Stoic? The Stoic man does not seek to dominate a woman's direction. He seeks to walk beside her with calm, with confidence, and with care. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free," and freedom in the Stoic sense means acting from inner strength, not outer impulse. It means offering stability to the world around you, especially to those you love, without demanding recognition. So when you place your hand on her lower back, do it not as a gesture of ownership, but as a gift of quiet grounding. No words needed, just presence, just steadiness, just a moment where she doesn't need to carry everything on her own. And in that silent offer, you say what many men never learn how to say: "You are safe with me." 4. Her neck, the place of surrender. Her neck is not just a part of her body, it is a symbol of trust, of vulnerability, of surrender. Think about it. Animals expose their necks only when they feel safe. So do humans. To touch a woman's neck is not to arouse, it is to ask. Ask silently, "Do you trust me enough to let go?" Her neck is where emotion rises before it becomes words, where her pulse quickens, where breath softens. It is where her body and her soul come closest together in silence. But it is also a place guarded carefully. Many women tense up when touched there, not because they don't want it, but because they've learned that most men touch without listening, without earning it. So if you touch her here, even gently, you must bring your full awareness, your stillness, your grounded masculine presence. Example: you're sitting beside her, maybe after a long conversation or a quiet walk. There's no rush, no performance. She leans her head against your shoulder. You raise your hands slowly, calmly, and let your fingertips brush the back of her neck. Just once, just long enough to say, "I'm here, you're safe." She closes her eyes, not because she's tired, but because she's surrendering. And she trusts you to hold that surrender with care. That's not seduction. That's reverence. Why this matters to a Stoic? A Stoic man knows the difference between dominance and presence. Touching her neck should never be a move. It should be a mirror, reflecting the peace and strength within you. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. You are not like the men who came before her with haste or heat. You are calm, you are centered, you are deliberate. And that calm is what allows her to open. It's not about what your fingers do, it's about what your silence says. It's about being the man who doesn't chase surrender, but creates the safety where surrender happens on its own. Touch her neck like you are holding a truth, one she's long protected, one she forgot was still alive in her. And when she exhales, long and slow, into your presence, you will feel it not just in your hands, but in your chest. You are safe to exhale now. That's what you've just told her, without a single word. 5. Behind her ears, the forgotten path. Behind her ears lies a place few notice, and fewer still understand. It's not just a sensitive patch of skin, it's a portal, a passageway between thought and emotion, between tension and surrender. Most men never touch her there, some because they don't know, others because they move too fast. But the man who understands presence, the man who slows down and observes, he discovers what others have missed. That sometimes the most powerful response a woman has, the one that shivers her spine, melts her shoulders, and quiets her mind, comes from the lightest touch in the most overlooked place. It is not just about stimulation. It is about awakening something dormant. Behind her ears lives a forgotten memory of what it's like to feel cherished without being consumed. Example, you lean in to whisper something not sexy, but sincere. A compliment not about her looks, but her essence. Your breath brushes the side of her face, trailing just behind her ear. She closes her eyes, her breath catches, not because you said something clever, but because you were close, without demand, gentle, without hesitation, and real, without performance. That spot, that moment, becomes a memory, not dramatic, not cinematic, but internal, deep, intimate. Why this matters to a Stoic? The Stoic understands that the softest movements often carry the most weight. In a world of noise, rushing hands, and loud gestures, the Stoic offers quiet precision. He knows that tenderness is not weakness, it's control, refined. Touching behind her ear is not about unlocking desire. It's about reminding her that she is still noticed. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And many women over time begin to imagine that their subtleties are invisible, that their quiet beauty no longer matters, that no one notices the way her body leans, the way her breath shortens, the way she blushes quietly when caught off guard. But the man who brushes gently behind her ear, the man who finds joy in what others dismiss, he says something louder than words. I see what others miss, and I honor it. 6. Her mind, the true center of intimacy. A woman's body can be admired, but a woman's mind must be earned, especially with an older woman, one who has lived through storms and still stands. She has rebuilt herself too many times to be impressed by surface. What she craves now is mental companionship, intellectual intimacy, depth. She's had men touch her skin, but how many have touched her thoughts? She does not want you to solve her. She wants you to wonder with her. Example, you ask her over coffee what she thinks happens after death. Not to challenge her, not to trap her in debate, but to listen. She pauses. Then she opens. Not just about belief, but about childhood, fear, memory, regret. And you stay with her. You don't interrupt. You don't redirect. You just let her mind unfold, like pages in a book no one has taken time to read. That's intimacy, not just touching her physically, but honoring the architecture of her mind, the towers of her curiosity, the shadows of her doubt, the bridges she's built over pain. And when she sees that you're not afraid to walk those inner hallways with her, without judgment, she opens. Why this matters to a Stoic? Stoicism trains a man to rule his emotions, not to bury them, to examine life, not to escape it. And what is conversation, if not a mutual examination of life? Marcus Aurelius spent his nights writing meditations, not because he needed answers, but because he understood the beauty of honest reflection. When you invite a woman to think aloud, to explore her beliefs, her joys, her contradictions, you become more than a man. You become a mirror. You become a space where she can grow. It takes strength to hold space for another's mind, to not be intimidated by her opinions, to not shrink in the presence of her certainty, to not dominate the dialogue with your ego. Let her mind roam. Let her contradict herself. Let her ask questions that make your heart stretch. And when she says, "No one's ever asked me that before," know that you've entered a place far more sacred than her bedroom. You've touched the sanctuary of her thoughts. And that is unforgettable. 7. Her wrinkles, the roadmap of her becoming. Most of the world sees wrinkles as something to erase, to smooth, to hide. Signs of age, and in their eyes, signs of decline. But the Stoic sees them differently. He sees a story, a roadmap, a face that has lived. Wrinkles around her eyes mean she's laughed. Wrinkles on her forehead mean she's thought deeply. Lines around her mouth, that she's spoken boldly or bitten back words when it was wiser to stay silent. Every mark is proof she has endured, she has overcome, she has become. And when you touch her face, when your fingers move gently across those lines, you are not just acknowledging age, you are honoring evolution. Example. You reach up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Your thumb brushes the crow's feet at the corner of her eye. You pause there, just a moment. She stiffens, expecting judgment, but you don't look away. Instead, you smile and say, "These, they're beautiful. They mean you've lived." You see the tears well up, not because of sadness, but because no one has ever said that to her. Not like that, not sincerely, not as praise, but as poetry. Why this matters to a Stoic. Stoicism teaches us to accept what we cannot control, and even more, to love it. In the same way we admire the erosion of a canyon, the weathering of an ancient stone, so too must we admire the aging of a face that has known time and chosen to continue. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The woman before you has not wasted it. Her face says so. And if you're wise, you will love her not despite those lines, but because of them. She doesn't need creams. She needs reverence. Let your hands speak what your words may hesitate to say. You are not losing beauty. You are gaining legacy. And when she believes you, truly believes you will see her glow in a way no lotion, no makeup, no compliment from a stranger could ever recreate. Because she'll realize she doesn't need to hide time. She needs to share it with someone who sees it as art. 8. Her silence. The space between sound. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it with words, with noise, with movement. But an older woman, she knows the value of quiet. She's learned that not everything needs to be spoken, that sometimes the most honest conversations happen without sound. Her silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is protection. It is the echo of all the things she has yet to say or no longer wishes to repeat. And when you are with her and that silence enters the space between you are being tested. Not with questions, but with absence. Will you panic and speak? Will you fill the air with meaningless chatter to escape the discomfort? Or will you stay, still, calm, receptive? Because if you can meet her silence with your own, if you can sit in it like a monk in meditation, without fidgeting, without forcing, then you will have touched her in a way most men never have. Example, you're sitting together after a deep conversation. The words have faded. She looks away, down at her hands. You feel the impulse to say something, anything, to close the gap. But instead you breathe. You let the silence remain. And slowly, she reaches for your hand. No words, just that. Because in that moment she realizes, he doesn't need to fill me, he simply allows me to be. Why this matters to a Stoic. A Stoic does not flee from discomfort. He welcomes it as a teacher. And silence, especially the silence between two people, is one of the greatest teachers of all. It reveals what noise conceals. Truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." When you share silence with her and do so without anxiety, you are offering her that retreat. You're telling her without words, "You don't need to perform, I will not rush you, your being is enough." And when she trusts you enough to be quiet with you, to simply exist beside you without explanation, you've reached a level of intimacy no physical act can match. Because only the most grounded man, the man who no longer needs to prove himself, can offer the rarest kind of affection. Presence without pressure. 9. Her heart, the place that cannot be faked. You can touch her skin. You can kiss her lips. You can even hold her gaze and make her smile. But none of it matters if you never touch her heart. And her heart, it is not where you think it is. It does not live in romance movies or scripted lines. It does not open to gifts, flowers, or compliments rehearsed in front of a mirror. Her heart opens to one thing only: truth. Not performance, not charm, not even connection as most men define it. She opens to what is real. And that is why her heart is the hardest place to reach. because it requires that you bring your own. Example, you're sitting outside together. The day has been light, easy, even joyful. But there's a moment, quiet and unplanned, where she asks you something vulnerable. Have you ever been deeply hurt? You could deflect, make light of it, say, sure, haven't we all? But instead you pause, you breathe, and you tell her something real. Not dramatic, not polished, just honest. Something you have carried, something that shaped you, something that still softens your voice when you speak of it. And you don't say it to gain her sympathy. You say it because it's who you are. Her eyes do not widen. She doesn't gasp. She simply nods, slowly. And in that nod, her heart opens. Why this matters to a Stoic? Stoicism is not about being emotionless. It's about being truthful, being anchored. It means knowing yourself deeply, not to protect or display, but to serve, to serve others with presence, clarity, and care. Seneca wrote, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. To speak from your heart, especially to a woman who has built walls around hers, is a rare kind of courage. It says, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to meet you, human to human, soul to soul. And when you speak with your heart, she doesn't just feel heard, she feels held. That is the final place, the place no man can fake his way into. The one place that requires you to show up fully, without mask, without motive, without a finish line in mind. And when you do, she'll let you in. Not because you forced your way, but because you walk slowly, listen deeply, touch gently, and in doing so, Graham, you reminded her of something she almost forgot, that her heart is still worth being known. Conclude the Stoic intimacy. These 9 places, they are not about seduction. They are about presence. They are not steps in a technique. They are invitations to slow down, to see deeper, to feel with more than your hands. Because the true art of touching a woman, especially an older woman, has less to do with physicality and more to do with sensitivity. A Stoic man understands that the rarest intimacy is not what happens between bodies, but what happens in the space between words, in the stillness between thoughts, in the honesty between silences. She will not remember how smooth your lines were. She will remember the moments you paused before speaking, the way your eyes didn't flinch when hers filled with tears, the way you didn't rush to fix. You simply stayed. Because you weren't trying to have her. You were honoring her. You weren't performing. You were witnessing. You weren't taking. You were holding space. In a world that chases pleasure at the cost of presence, you chose to be still. That is Stoicism. And that is unforgettable. If you felt something awaken in you during this journey, a deeper way to connect, a quieter form of strength, a desire to lead with depth instead of speed, then you're already walking the Stoic path. Like, share, subscribe, not because the algorithm demands it, but because the world needs more men who listen without trying to fix, who stay without needing to conquer, who love with stillness, walk slowly, speak gently, touch deeply. This is the Stoic way.